All right, so the drive out is not what we want, but being that she's a gymnast and already a junior, a better drive out may not be possible and may not be really worth it at this point because it'll just take too much effort. One thing for sure, though, looking at the floor I don't like. Hips up, chest up, shoulders back, and try to keep your head neutral. So if you're driving out, you're going to be looking straight ahead, not specifically at the floor. If you look at the floor, it's going to limit your stride pattern. Arm drive, we worked on that straight arm back action is not ideal. Would rather have more of a 90-degree angle drive. But midway through, the stride pattern looks pretty good. Speed is looking good. And it's a little bit of an overstride. Not a lot, just a little bit. Plant looks decent. Maybe a little more pull through would be nice. And then, obviously a little off the board, but not bad considering the weather and all that stuff. But here's where it all really matters to me. This is a thing that I teach differently from most. And it is what it is, but this is what I've learned over the time I've been coaching and what I've tried to teach my kids that I think is most effective, especially when you're new at something, or at long jumping in particular. This drive to me, where the arms already, they're both out here. Right now at this point, I'd rather have the right arm driven like that, and actually I don't have that, and the left arm would be back like this, ready to drive forward in a second. So right off the line, right off the board, right here, see, you're starting to do it with the right arm, but you see what the right arm does? It drives for a second, and then you just kind of throw it up in the air. And then your left arm never does much of anything, and then it ultimately is already coming through. So right now you're already reaching forward with these arms, and you're looking down. See, my preference would be to drive that right arm. So right now, instead of having it up by your ear, I'd rather have it driven out like this, nice and tall, and this arm is back here. And then this arm would ultimately come forward, and then both arms would come forward because they're going to drive up, hang, and then come forward. And if they time properly, see, your arms are already forward too soon. If they were still in the air and then you started to come through right about now, so you see how you're already through? Your arms are already back behind you. Right now, it would be great to have your arms at this moment coming through, which would then propel your momentum that way, which doesn't happen, which is why you land on your butt. Most common thing. So your arms aren't doing anything right now, so they're not providing any momentum going forward, so you just fall on your rear end. So instead of putting your hands down, you should be driving them forward. And of course, as soon as you hit the sand, you have to learn how to collapse your knees better. So those are the main emphases that I see. So this knee drive, this arm drive, now at this point you'd be bringing your arms back actually. And this leg, the under leg, should still be, I guess, kind of like, it'd be more like this, right? Like it'd be back, like you're all tucked under here. It's too tight. So this leg should be back. This leg should be driven forward. And then your arms should both be coming back at this point, ready to come forward eventually, which will be here. So there you go. Easily improvable. Pretty darn good for our first day working, especially in the bad weather. That was about a 16-something jump landing on your butt. So here's the follow-up video to the previous video, more in depth of the takeoff and the landing. So if you look at the knee drive and the arm drive right here. This is Carl Lewis on the bottom. Right arm driven forward, left knee driven forward, really explosive driving up. And then you look at Noreen jumping out with, again, not nearly as much drive. The right arm, a little bit driving out. The left arm is basically doing nothing. And again, if you go back to Carl over here, or in that aspect, that right arm is really driving. That left leg is really driving. And then again, look at the opposite at the top. The right arm's doing a little something. The left arm is already folded in. And then there's pretty good knee drive. But then the next thing to really look at would be, look at the arms already. They're already out in front. Whereas Carl, at this aspect, she's just off the board there. He's just off the board, say, about here, right? So he's got his arms way back. He's leaning back, driving his hips forward. And his arms, see how his right arm is way back and his left arm hasn't even come back yet. He's getting it back so that it's going to go way back, like right there. It's way back and then it's going to come forward. So both of those arms are coming forward at the right time, whereas her arms are already forward. And it's too soon. Now, they've already come through. Look, those arms are already through. His arms aren't even completely through yet. And he's just hitting the sand. So to me, this is the best timing of any jumper I've ever seen. Look at that. It's basically parallel to the ground right now. And his arms are parallel to the ground. And he only comes through with his arms as he hits the sand, which is why he comes forward and doesn't land on his rear end. Whereas she comes through way too early. So now she's got nothing left to bring her through, to bring her forward as she hits the sand. So, of course, what's going to happen? She falls on her butt. And that's what we get. So, further analysis of takeoff and landing. And obviously a very good athlete, very good jumper already, but new at the sport and the absolute best who ever lived. So I always try to compare everybody to Carl Lewis. Obviously, no one's going to live up to that, quite to that level, but that's what you want to aspire to. That is the best technique I've ever seen. And the thing that I like the best about his technique is his timing and his landing.